Well, welcome everyone to Episcopal Relief and Development's first Planned Giving webinar, I believe. My name is Jim Murphy. I'm Director of Major Gifts and Planned Giving for Episcopal Relief and Development. It's wonderful to have all of you with us today. We'll be focusing on helping you to understand how to make a planned gift to benefit your parish, to benefit Episcopal Relief and Development, or any of your favorite charities out there. This is our brief agenda, and just so that everyone knows, we will try and keep this under an hour, but we will be recording this in for perpetuity. So if everyone can stay on mute, and my pal Sue Bennett, who is taking care of the back office work here, will ensure that that stays. There will be time for questions, and that is when you can certainly take yourself off of mute and just ask your question directly. We're so happy to have you here, and I'll introduce Mike Smith in just a moment. But first, just so that we have a little bit of context, here's our agenda that we'll be covering. So Episcopal Relief and Development, I am so excited and grateful to now be a part of the team after 16 years at the Episcopal Church Foundation. Many of you may recognize my ugly mug from many, many other webinars, but so excited to be able to introduce what Episcopal Relief and Development does, which is that we partner with locally led organizations around the world to advance lasting change in communities that are impacted by injustice, poverty, disaster, and climate change. We do this in 4 interconnected ways, and those priorities are early childhood development, our focus on women and girls, trying to reduce gender-based violence and advance equality, as well as our extensive work in climate resilience and something that we've been known for many, many years, disaster response. And we do this throughout the world, as many of you know. We have some very extensive programs throughout the world working in partnership with organizations on the ground. And we ensure that all of your gifts that you give us will be well spent and also produce the results that we and you would expect. We do this in collaboration with a number of partners, both here in the United States and throughout the world, including numerous Anglican dioceses and various Anglican organizations, but not only within the Anglican Church, but with other faith traditions all throughout the world. So we're very excited for you to be with us here today and to learn not only about Episcopal Relief and Development a little bit, but to learn how you can make that planned gift that you may be considering for your parish, for Episcopal Relief and Development, or for whatever charity you would like to designate. I'd like to bring onto our speaker role for the moment, Mike Smith, who is a major gift officer here at Episcopal Relief and Development. Mike has been here, I think, for nearly 14 years. He has been actively involved with major donors to Episcopal Relief, and also quite involved in all of the planned giving work that has been going on for many, many years, especially in maintaining relationships with the members of our Matthew 25 Legacy Society. We'll hear a little bit about that later in our time today. Mike has traveled extensively throughout the world to various sites where we are doing our work and our ministry. And many of you may not know this, but he is an avid photographer and quite a good one. And he has been the source of many, many evocative pictures that you'll see in our materials, including this one that's on the screen right now. So without further ado, Mike, can you give us a brief reflection of your time at Episcopal Relief, your work among major and planned giving donors, please?
Sure. Thank you, Jim. And thanks to all of you for being here with us today. Yeah, it's been 13 years or so now that I've been with this organization as a major gift officer, and met, as you might imagine, a lot of donors over the years, all over the country. Um, Many of them major donors, a fair number of them have made planned gifts, and it's been very cool for me to, as sort of as a lifelong Episcopalian, to be able to visit churches and donors and people who love this organization and want to help it succeed. And I spent most of my career as a journalist, as a photographer and a photo editor and director. So a few years ago, gosh, 10 years ago, I guess now, I started traveling a little bit to visit our programs. And it's just, I wish everyone on the staff could do that at least once, because as good a job as I think we do kind of telling our story, there's nothing like visiting and seeing it for yourself to really hammer home the difference that this work makes in the lives of so many people around the world. And so I've been to places like Kenya and Zambia and Myanmar and Nicaragua and Brazil, and that's where this picture is taken was taken, to see up close the communities we work in, the individuals, and I can't really overstate how important uh, we are to these communities, who are stronger sometimes than they think they are, and capable of doing anything they want to do, really. Um, and it's why I love the way we work so much, because it's not about us going somewhere and giving things to people, but it's more helping people understand what their assets are and what they can do on their own. So I've seen a lot of leaders grow up in these communities and step forward and take on responsibility, whether it's a savings group or a farmers collective or a kitchen gardens project, on and on and on. This picture you're looking at now is from Brazil, and that we were on our way to visit some of the river communities near the city of Belém, which is in the far north in the Amazon. And those virtually, I guess everybody in that picture are either employees or volunteers of the cathedral, uh, where a wonderful bishop, Marinez Basoto, uh, is leading just an enormous amount of good work. There's been a lot of issues with hunger over the last few years in the Amazon in particular, which is home to many indigenous groups, um, and a lot of folks who depend on the rivers for their livelihood, um, and for various reasons, environmental, industrial, um, little dab of corruption here and there. Making a living has been really difficult. So these are all food packets you see in the foreground that are going to these people, most of whom are members of our savings groups that have been established, all have been established in the last year or so in communities all over the Diocese of Amazonia. So these volunteers you see are out there every week, every couple of weeks, visiting, helping, encouraging, mentoring, and the groups are really, they're doing some great things. So I could go on for longer than we have about these programs, but I'll stop. Hopefully that gives you some idea of the kind of thing we're doing, and it's inspiring, to me certainly, and I think to many of our donors, that the work that you're all helping support really does make a great difference. So thank you all.
Thank you so much, Mike, for for all of the work that you've done for Episcopal Relief through the years. Where we're going to focus in on now is our main topic to help you understand better how you can consider making a planned gift to your parish, to Episcopal Relief and Development, or to many of the other great charities that are out there. So just to start with, as sort of an extra thing, and now when I'm in person, any of you who've seen me do a presentation like this in person will know that I'm often joking when I have come to this slide, which is quite honestly the clearest direction within our Book of Common Prayer that everyone should be considering making a bequest for religious or charitable uses. What I joke about, quite honestly, is I'll ask people, well, where do you think this shows up in our wonderful Book of Common Prayer? And quite often I'll get a few hands raised or people just shouting out, well, it's in the burial office, of course. And I try to gently say that, well, perhaps, if it is in the burial office, it may well be a little late to be talking about planned giving and considering how you might wish to do that. However, this is in a very wonderful place within our Book of Common Prayer, where it is the celebration for the birth or adoption of a child, a transformational time in people's lives when they're looking toward the future and considering those individuals and those institutions that are most important to them and their family. And they literally consider raising charities to the level of family when they're considering making a planned gift. So just to talk broadly in context of the different ways that you can make a financial gift. You certainly do still give to your parish and to other charities in your time and your talents by helping people to benefit from all of those. But when you make a financial gift, there are three basic ways to do that. First, it's making an annual or so-called ordinary gift, where you're making a gift that's supporting the ongoing operations, the annual budget of a charity like Episcopal Relief and Development. People most often give that gift from their current income. So those gifts can go up and down depending on the context of the individual and the circumstances of the economy. Secondly, extraordinary or major gifts. These are gifts that people make out of assets that they may hold, and they make a special decision either to give to a capital campaign, paying that off over several years, perhaps giving to a special appeal that is being done at your parish or somewhere else. Could also be to fund endowments or other significant endeavors. And this is where, for most capital campaigns, certainly, it is so important for the wealthiest members of a congregation or that are involved with a charity to typically step up and give those very significant gifts. However, I must say, and I would say this in many contexts, regardless of how large the gift is in dollar value, it is certainly, whoops, now I just lost sorry about that. It is certainly important and a major gift to the individual. Finally, there is planned or ultimate giving. These are gifts given to fund the future, the longest term of your charity or your parish. And these are normally given from people's estates or those assets that they're holding for use in retirement. And there's the screen. Okay. So when we're looking at the different aspects of making decisions about what you are going to do with your ultimate assets when you will pass away, I think of them in three different categories again. And the first category is what most people have talked about for years and years when it comes to planned giving, and that is someone's estate, the estate that will be sent to the probate courts. All of the designations in the estate are governed by a will that has been written and witnessed by individuals. That will cover typically everyone's possession typically a large number of different types of real estate, but those unallocated assets that are still within your estate. All right. It is always a good idea for everyone to have a will in place, although sadly, only about 50% of Americans do have a written will, and that's proven again and again to be the case. The other types of distributions that will be made with your ultimate assets are from what I call allocated beneficiaries. These are designations that you make normally on specific forms for various accounts or for various tools that you have used in your estate planning. Those are retirement accounts. Many of those are, of course, IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, and all of the different types of accounts where you store away funds while you are working and then draw upon them once you are retired. It also will be in many states bank and brokerage accounts, where when you set up an account, you actually designate an individual to receive that account, as well as for insurance, where you separately on a form that is provided, designate particular individuals to receive parts of those assets that will be passed on. Now, this is very important to remember because though you are asked to designate many of those accounts, some people do not. And when you do not, those assets that are not allocated, which could have been allocated specifically, will end up in your estate that will be probated. For those individuals that are receiving the benefit, those beneficiaries for those accounts, all they typically need to do is provide a proof of death to the institution, and then they can actually directly receive those assets. That's for an individual as well as for a charity or any other institution. Trust assets. Trusts, or so-called inter vivos trusts, during life trusts, are becoming more and more popular. And this is when an individual or a couple will set up all of their assets to be literally owned by an existing trust. They can often take assets in and out of that trust during their lifetime, but they actually choose what assets are going to be in the trust. For many people in states across the country, especially in California, most every single asset they have is actually placed within the trust. And they do that in many ways to avoid the burdens of probate, and different states have different rules, and therefore there may be more encouragement in some states than others to place all of your current assets in a trust. Another advantage to this is that it is typically easier because the assets are in the trust, and when someone passes away, they will either pass directly to a spouse and be under their control, or it will pass directly to the other beneficiaries that are designated for when everyone who had set up the trust has passed away. This also keeps matters private. Many people enjoy their privacy and like the simplicity of having trusts set up during their lifetime. But for anything that isn't allocated to specific beneficiaries through these different forms and special accounts, or held in trust outside of someone's future probated estate, that's how this will work, so that everything that remains that's unallocated will be a part of the distributions that will be made from the probated estate. Okay, as I say, we're going to have some questions later, but I wanted to lay that out because the different types of planned gifts that you might choose to make to your parish or to other charities like Episcopal Relief and Development can be done from all of those different options, from your estate, from allocations for an account, or out of a trust. And so I'm incorporating all of those when I'm talking about the largest type of planned gift, which is a bequest. The vast majority of bequests will come to individuals and to charities through someone's will, the trust they have set up, or the designated allocations that they have made from various accounts. Now, of course, there are different ways you could make that gift. The first being you could make a specific dollar bequest. I would give $10,000 to Episcopal Relief and Development, or $10,000 to my parish here in New York, Transfiguration. That's a great gift, right? It's a great gift. But what people need to consider as they're thinking about this is they want to ensure that their wishes are fulfilled. And many times by making a specific dollar amount bequest, because those bequests must be paid first before any other allocations are made in the will. If someone's estate is much smaller than they expected when they pass away, that could cause something that they really didn't intend, that the majority of their estate is paid out in specific dollar bequests, perhaps leaving very little to be divided amongst family. Could also work in the other way, where someone who has a much larger estate when they pass away and they really intended to leave a significant gift to an individual or to charity, they may have lowballed that amount just to ensure that it was able to be paid out, and the rest of their estate just continued to grow to a much larger amount. So for many people, a percentage allocation in their will, in their trust, and it's typically required in designated allocation forms, that a percentage may make the most sense for people, because whether or not their estate ends up being very small, that individual can still show how much they believed in the future mission and ministry of their parish or of other charities by allocating that percentage. And as my dear friend Terry Parsons of blessed memory, who used to be the stewardship officer of the Episcopal Church, used to say, and I can't do her Kentucky accent, if you can't find it in your heart to tithe while you're living, you ain't going to miss it when you're dead. So I will leave you with that thought on the percentage allocation. You can also, in your will or trust, designate a specific asset. I will strongly recommend, if you are considering leaving specific assets, especially real estate or other personal property, to a charity and in many ways to individuals, to ask that person or the leaders at the charity whether or not they can accept that gift. There are certain charities that cannot accept different types of gifts, and you want to ensure that your wishes are fulfilled. Another way to handle that is you could have your estate actually sell the specific asset and then provide the proceeds. And I'll come back to that concept in just a moment. Something that many, many people do consider is after they have made certain allocations to their family through their trust or their will, they may say that the remainder, all that remains that hasn't already been designated, will go to a particular charity. This can be a fantastic gift to the charity, but I must say it can be intentional or unintentional. If you haven't done the work you need to do with appropriate professional advisors, you could have intended on leaving a very large amount to charity or a smaller amount to charity. And if you didn't plan well enough on the expected amount of assets that would end up in the remainder, again, your wishes may not be fulfilled. So it is always a good idea to speak with professional advisors, especially lawyers and accountants, as appropriate, to decide all of the assets that will be left behind and what is appropriate to be given in remainder. Honestly, remainder value gifts are actually some of the largest gifts that charities will receive. So it's usually a very beneficial gift to charity. The last type I always like to mention is the so-called contingent bequest. A contingent bequest is just what you would think. If this happens, then. So if your spouse were to predecease you, or God forbid, your children were to predecease you, you can then make a charity or another individual the contingent beneficiary of a particular bequest, whether that be a percentage, a dollar amount, or asset. So that is typically good planning, and working with a skilled attorney and with appropriately resourced online will creation tools. It is really something that should be thinking through, because you don't know what the future holds, and it is always good to have a backup plan. As a Murphy, Murphy's Law is always happening to me, so I always have to have a backup plan for basically everything I do. So I just recommend that as well. Final thought in bequests is bequest designations. Now, of course, you can put a restriction on any gift that you make, and we'll be talking about the other types of gifts in just a moment. Most people do that through bequests, but what I want to forewarn you against is if you have a real devotion to a particular ministry, whether it be at your parish or somewhere else, again, speak to the leadership of Episcopal Relief and Development, speak to me, speak to the leadership of your parish if you're considering giving a restricted gift. What you want to avoid is you don't want to overly restrict your gift so that your parish or the charity can't effectively use it. You also do not want to create what's known as an anachronistic restriction, which could very well limit what the individuals could do with the money, and over time they could actually be limited on that, they can't even spend it at all. There's the classic example in my home state of Michigan where an industrialist gave an endowment for coal, the mineral coal, to be given to the poor at Christmas time. Not a very useful thing in the 21st century, but you would have to, the charity would have to get that restriction taken off, and it's a very complex process. So if you do wish to restrict your gift in any way, please reach out to the leadership of the parish or of the charity, because most of the time giving an unrestricted gift gives your vestry, the board of directors of a charity, the most flexibility on trying to fulfill the mission of the organization. Now, just a few minutes on other types of planned gifts, all of which would be distributed at death, and we've already covered bequests. I want to just focus a little bit, just as a couple of pointers, in life insurance. Life insurance can be a fantastic gift. Normally, when you leave behind the proceeds of life insurance, since those are never taxed, they are actually a good wealth replacement tool where you may give appreciated assets during your lifetime or at death to charities and to other institutions. You may wish to leave that untaxed life insurance proceeds to an individual because, as I say, they won't pay any taxes. However, you also have an option of providing the proceeds to a charity. You can do that with practically any of the term life insurance policies you may receive at your place of employment. You can also, if you have created a cash value policy, Universal Life and many of the others, you can actually make the charity an owner or beneficiary of that policy. And it enables you to actually make the premium payments as a donation to the charity. We're not going to go any deeper into that, but if you have questions or want to talk to me about it, I'm more than happy to chat with you about different opportunities in life insurance. But I have one important thing to remind you of if you ever consider leaving life insurance proceeds to a charity or to any individual. Please tell that person or that charity that you've done that and provide them with the beneficiary document that shows that they are the beneficiary. The unfortunate reason I have to recommend that is that at this time, no state in the United States requires that an insurance company seeks out its beneficiaries. It is the beneficiary who must go to the insurance company with the death certificate to demonstrate that they are the beneficiary. So just a quick side note for everyone to remember. Real estate. Now, real estate, I indirectly did mention before, real estate can be a great gift, but generally can be a little problematic for many charities and for that matter, for many individuals. And therefore, the same rule would apply, the same suggestion would apply, that you would seek out the leadership of a charity or of an individual before you're going to give them a piece of real estate. Many reasons for that. As I say, many cannot accept it. In many cases, it may be more beneficial, certainly to a charity, to simply state that the proceeds, the eventual proceeds of real estate would be given to the charity so that the charity doesn't have to receive a piece of real estate, take care of it, and do all of what's involved in selling the property, because basically very few parishes or charities want to be landlords. And I will say this, you also want to be careful that you don't burden someone with a piece of real estate and make that the gift that keeps on taking, as many charities will refer to real estate that can be somewhat dilapidated or problematic or difficult to sell. In addition, when you're looking at real estate and you're holding it with other people, especially in the case of joint tenancy with right of survivorship, or in the case for married people, tenancy by the entirety, though those properties will actually pass to the other people that you hold that property with directly. And that's, again, outside of your probative estate. The rest of the types of real estate generally are needing to be allocated in your will, or of course through a trust that you might have set up. So that are some things those are some things to consider when it comes to real estate. Now, for those of you who remember my time at Episcopal Church Foundation, I talked a lot about life income gifts, and they are a great opportunity. I'm not going to focus as much on them today, but I'm very happy to chat with anyone about this. The way that life income gifts work is that you make a gift now and receive a tax deduction for the value of that gift now, and typically receive income for the rest of your life. Can be a very appealing gift, especially if you're moving toward retirement and trying to make some plans with those retirement assets. But I'm very happy to chat with you. There's many different options, many different ways to have this split benefit of the gift, where you make the gift but receive the income in exchange. A pooled income fund, in brief, that pays out the yield or the interest and dividends for the gift that you have given in. The charitable gift annuities are fixed amounts that are paid out, and the fixed amount is based upon a percentage when you create that charitable gift annuity contract and your age, and that percentage is multiplied by the original gift, and that's the amount of fixed income that would come. Finally, the charitable remainder trust, more complex gift, but one that can be very beneficial to individuals and families as they plan it out. And all of these work in the same basic way, that when the person receiving the income from any of these gifts pass away, that is when those assets are liquidated and then paid out to the various charities that were previously designated in the documentation. So I say, very happy to review any of those gifts whenever you wish, and I'll have all my contact information shortly. So I've done a fair amount of writing over the past few years of what I've started to call planned giving adjacent tools. And the first one is one that many people already know about, the donor advised fund. Donor advised funds can be great because after you make a gift to a donor advised fund, you immediately receive a full tax deduction for that gift. And many people like to bundle their giving to their parish or to other charities by making a very significant gift in a particular year, receiving the full tax deduction, and then they're able to itemize in that one year. And then in future years, they make grants out of their donor advised fund to one or more charities that they support. And of course, during their lifetime, this is an amazing way for people to be philanthropic. I actually know many people who have created donor advised funds as a true charitable savings account for themselves, where while they're working and while they need maybe those tax deductions every few years, they are putting gifts into their donor advised fund. And when they retire, they intend to be tremendously philanthropic. Hopefully, after those assets have actually grown a bit and they can be even more philanthropic than they would have been able while they were working. One thing that a lot of the very large donor advised funds do not focus on, it was something that the Episcopal Church Foundation's donor advised fund did very directly, is what happens after you pass away? Because the remaining balance of a donor advised fund can actually be considered a type of planned gift. And that way you can still give to those charities that you've raised to the level of family in your overall estate plans. You can give to those charities you've supported all your life when you pass away by specifying with your sponsoring charity who holds your donor advised fund. You can give those directions to them in advance. In fact, several of the people in our Matthew 25 Society, they are planning on doing that. So that's already a part of their overall charitable plans. Individual retirement accounts. Now, very briefly, what I'm going to say about individual retirement accounts is just about those traditional IRAs. This does not apply for your 401k or 403b. So only for the traditional IRA, you have this amazing option after you're 70 and a half years old that you can make a qualified charitable distribution to charity. Now, what that is, instead of you taking the money and then having to pay taxes on that money, you can, if you choose, once you're 70 and a half from your IRA, you can give a distribution directly to charity. And the charity will receive the entire amount, and you will not pay taxes on that withdrawal. When you turn 73 and you have what is known as the required minimum distribution, because of course the government does have to tax the funds that you're taking out of that eventually. So if you avoided giving or taking any distributions, you must take them once you turn 73. But the neat thing with a traditional IRA is you can use your qualified charitable distribution up to $100,000 per year to count toward your required minimum distribution. So you are not increasing your income, and the charities that you love so deeply, you can greatly benefit through these charitable distributions. So please just bear that in mind. The wrinkle here for planned giving, and why it's a planned giving adjacent tool, is that for all retirement accounts, including the IRA, you can put a charity as the ultimate beneficiary. Why is that important? It's important because if you perhaps, if your spouse has predeceased and you're not passing the remaining balance of your IRA or other types of retirement accounts to a spouse, all of those you can designate a charity to receive the remaining balance, and that charity will pay no deferred taxes. This can be just an incredible gift to fund the mission of your parish or Episcopal Relief and Development or many other charities. So something to truly consider. Now, charitable lead trusts, I'm going to spend 25 seconds on, I think. So charitable lead trusts are the rarest form of a planned giving adjacent tool. They are truly only for the wealthiest of donors. What this is that a very wealthy individual may have some underappreciated assets or some that she thinks are underappreciated at this time. She can actually create a charitable lead trust, which is a term of years trust that actually has to pay taxes, but it also while it exists, will make a number of distributions to charity. At the end of the charitable lead trust's lifetime, the assets are then taken out of the lead trust and distributed either to the grantor, the person who created the trust, or to someone else, like their heirs, or possibly to another charitable trust. Why do some of the wealthiest folks in our country do that? They're quite smart, and this is a useful tool because it's a taxable trust that pays out to charity. But the taxes due on the assets that go into this trust are based on what goes into the trust, so that if they have underappreciated assets that they believe are going to greatly appreciate in years to come, they're getting taxed on the original amount, whereas whoever is going to receive those assets at the termination of the charitable lead trust will receive everything in whole. So very, very useful tool, but extremely rare. Happy to share more information about this at another time. So we're going to begin to wrap up some of what we've been focusing in on today to keep all of this together and to leave some good time for questions. So everything that I have talked about today with gifts and financial planning and reaching out to appropriate legal, tax, and financial experts who can assist you with all of these things, you need to consider what is best for you and your family. As you plan out who will receive your assets and what your legacy will be, you first need to consider, well, what are the wishes you wish to see fulfilled? How are they best fulfilled? And how do you best provide for your family and loved ones? And that incorporates thinking and planning and consideration. There are so many different situations, and every personal family situation is going to be different. Some families will have the need of caring for an elderly member if something were to happen to them. They might need to care for a disabled child and create special trusts for them. And there are many, many aspects to think about. And so, in a nutshell, there is no single way to handle your estate. You need to reflect on what is best for you, your family, and your future goals. And of course, what your legacy would be. You want to demonstrate to people that will come after you, your children and others, that you have thought through what's been most important to you in your lifetime. And that may well include making a gift to a charity or to your parish to demonstrate that this was an important part of your life and a legacy that you wish to pass on. There are some tools that I will be sending you. I'm going to be sending you several tools. One will be what I call the cheat sheet, which is recapping all of the different planned gifts that I had talked about. I also send you some links for you to investigate and figure out what works best for you. There are a couple of resources that I'm featuring on the screen. One is 5 Wishes, which many of you may have heard about. It enables you to think through many of the same things that the Episcopal Church Foundation's Planning for the End of Life Guide will cover. And how do you wish to plan for your estate? How do you wish to ensure that your wishes for your own health care and whatever care that you might choose it to be, whether it is staying on life support, not being on life support. Also, what sort of values do you wish to pass on to the next generation? So these are all opportunities for reflection and planning. And both of these resources, which I will send you links to, are things that you can go to online, download as you wish, and use at your own pace for reflecting on what is most important to you, your family, and quite honestly, I will just remind everyone that no matter how healthy you are, no matter how young you are, and sadly, I've seen a lot of examples of sudden changes in circumstances, things can happen, and you need to have clarity on how you wish to be treated, especially if you are not able to communicate your desires yourself. It's a very good idea to have a health proxy. Many states will have a form for filling this out. Both of these resources can be who would be your health proxy, making decisions for you. And as a quick side note, just remember, you may not want to choose your spouse. That is the norm. Your spouse is usually the default for making these decisions. I've also watched many spouses just be incapable of letting their spouse go, even if the other spouse did not want to be kept alive on machines. So I would just encourage you to think carefully about who would be making these decisions on your behalf, and to give that person records of your desires so that you can have your personal wishes fulfilled. And they may not be what your family desires. I could tell you a lot of unfortunate stories, as I say. So if you want to hear more, I'm very happy to chat with you. But I will be sending these along with other resources to you. So I'd love to spend about 5 to 10 minutes, if we could, on a few questions. And if you would like to type in your question, I believe Sue can see both the chat and the Q&A, but you can just plug that in as you wish, or simply take yourself off of mute and you can certainly ask your question. And I will take a slug of water while Sue decides what's best.
While we're waiting for a couple questions to come in, I do have one or two. What if I don't have any heirs and I want to leave my entire estate to my parish or to Episcopal relief? What should I do first about that?
Boy, so the very first thing is you should reach out to an appropriate attorney, or use a very high quality online will creation or trust creation tool. I will recommend you want to seek appropriate advice so that, once again, your wishes are going to be fulfilled. There's some nuance to this. If you literally have no heirs and you're leaving it all to charity, you typically have to specify in a will, depending on state laws, some of the other extended family that may try to claim your assets. And you may need to work with an attorney to make sure that you clarify that this is clearly your intention and you are excluding any distant relatives, even if you don't have heirs. It's just, again, so that you can ensure that your wishes are fulfilled.
And kind of along the same lines, but even if I did have heirs, what do I do with copies of my estate documents and instructions, guidelines for funerals, like all of those important papers?
Right. So I'm of the mind you need to share those documents as soon as you have them ready, not only with your executors that are going to, or your trustees that are going to handle those documents, but also to the contingent trustees or executors. They also need to know what your wishes are. And if you make updates, because you should be making updates to your estate plans at the minimum every 10 years, depending on circumstances. People change, circumstances change, and the sad part is many people will pass away sooner than you would have expected. So make sure that you're sharing all of those copies with those executors and contingent executors and trustees. But one quick note, many people will hold a copy, probably the fully signed copy, with their attorneys or in a bank deposit box. For those documents regarding your health care, if you were incapacitated, and any of the documents that you might have put together, giving instructions for your funeral and all of that, make sure that the appropriate health proxy has all of those documents. And I would even recommend, if your parish priest is willing, to make sure that he or she has those copies as well. The reason is people may file away those legal documents and not be able to find them right away. And if you have passed away, you need to get rolling. I should say, not you, the people that are taking care of your plans need to get rolling almost immediately with reaching out to a funeral home that you would have desired or that you might have even given a deposit for in pre-need planning. And honestly, you don't want to be in a situation where you have someone, let's say mom passes away, and it's going to be an all-out fight between her Wiccan daughter and her Presbyterian son on what type of funeral mom would have really wanted. Isn't it better that you demonstrate very clearly what it is that you would want to? And your parish priest should be able to help you. The documents that I'm going to send you will also help guide you if your desire is to have a very particular funeral. I have a very particular one already laid out with lots of incense and candles, as well as most of the music, but God willing, that's not going to be used very soon, but it will be used one day. Any other questions, Sue?
That's great advice. Yeah, one from the chat. What if I change my mind about leaving a planned gift to a secular charity? And I want to leave it to my parish or part of it to Episcopal Relief and Development. Do I need to inform that original charity?
So this is where you should, right? You should be honest and inform that charity that you have made that decision. It helps them in so many ways so that they can update their record. And perhaps you're doing it for a particular reason. And perhaps there's a different way that you could help out that charity while you're living. But letting the charity know is beneficial to everyone. And sadly, people are afraid to do that, right? Because they don't want to be left out of any sort of celebrations or ongoing relationships. But I can tell you almost every charity, if you had promised them a planned gift, but for whatever reason, you've made a choice not to give it to them, it is better they know. It is better they hear. And quite honestly, if there's a real reason, God forbid that there is some financial impropriety and you don't trust that the leadership will be capable of handling your gift and you are being a good steward of your resources by making that choice, it's better you tell them. Better you tell them, better they get that feedback and hopefully make better decisions in the future. And perhaps you'll revise what you're going to do. It all depends.
That is all the questions that I see right now. Unless somebody wants to unmute, I think we might have covered everything.
Well, as the slide says, and I will be sharing both the recording, the slides, and all those resources with everybody, I'm more than happy to chat with you about what your plans are for making a planned gift, either to Episcopal Relief or even to your parish. So you can reach out to me, and I'm very happy to chat with you in that case. So just to begin to wrap up today, the Episcopal, I'm sorry, I almost did it. Episcopal Relief and Development, almost used ECF. Episcopal Relief and Development wants to celebrate you or others raising Episcopal Relief and Development to the level of family in your estate plans. If you would like to notify us that you have named Episcopal Relief and Development in any planned gift, in any form, please let us know. We would love to say thank you while you're living. That's very important to us. We want to enhance that relationship and thank you while you are living. And the other aspect of this is I wanted to say that in 2025, we will be doing a few online events for the members of the Legacy Society. And I'm hoping, this is the next project, Sue, that I've got to dig into. I'll hopefully be having a few selected in-person events throughout the country in 2025, possibly one in 2024, can't promise yet, just to celebrate people locally where we may have a concentration of folks. The other thing is, if you let us know, we will then ask you if you wish to be listed, among the members of our Legacy Society online. It's not required, but it's certainly something that we would encourage you to do. And the reason we encourage you to do it is so that you can literally encourage others. The work of Episcopal Relief and Development has been amazing for 80 years. And we wish to continue that work and serve the guideline of Matthew 25 to help those who are less fortunate throughout the world, but not just help, to empower them. This goes back to what Mike was talking about in our actual work, to empower those in need, to enable them to do even more in their life. And to this end, I would like to, for a couple of minutes, invite Dave Colleen, the Reverend Dr. David Colleen, to please come off of mute. Dave is the rector of St. Thomas Church in White Marsh, which is located in Fort Washington, Pennsylvania, and is a member with his wife of our Matthew 25 Legacy Society. And Dave, thanks so much for being with us today and listening in. Can you tell us very briefly, why did you make the choice to raise Episcopal Relief and Development to the level of family in your estate plans?
Thanks, Jim. It really comes down to that my wife Carol and I are passionate about the mission of Episcopal Relief and Development, and it has to do with lasting change and the capacity of the organization to go beyond what a particular parish or diocese could do. And I was able to experience that impact firsthand as a board member of Episcopal Relief and Development. And I worked primarily in the areas of communications and strategic planning. So when you looked at those areas of children or climate change and some of the other strategic priorities, I had a small part, but a part in discerning what those signature areas of mission would be for the organization. And I'm very proud to be a part of that. And I have to tell you, as much as I was able to give to the organization during my board service, I learned a lot more just from the amazing staff members, from the other board members, and from members of parishes as they shared about their passion for the mission. Because at the end of the day, what this is all about is caring, as it says in Matthew 25, for the poor and for the vulnerable. And that's a very important part of why I wanted that to be part of my legacy, is that I don't think Jesus, when I go home, is going to be asking me about my favorite worship style or things like that, but that I will be asked, did you share your faith with your children and grandchildren and the people whom you served as a priest? Did you care through your financial giving and your gift of time and your spiritual gifts to those in need? And so I want that to be a part of my legacy. And the first time that my wife and I thought about legacy giving was right after September 11th. And September 11th was my very first day of seminary. And it was sobering. And immediately, as young parents, we went out, just as Jim started our seminar today, as young parents looking forward to the future, saying, what do we want our legacy to be? I mean, life can be uncertain. And so that is when we did our very first will, and we began to think about the charitable priorities for us. And when I came on as a board member of Episcopal Relief and Development, I was so proud to be a part of the organization that talked with Carol, and we very quickly decided that we wanted Episcopal Relief and Development to be part of our legacy. So I hope that gives you a little background, but for me, what it comes down to is the mission of caring for the vulnerable in a way that only an organization like Episcopal Relief and Development can. As good as the parish is or a diocese, the impact of Episcopal relief and development is truly global, and that's what inspires me.
Thank you very much, Dave. And thank you all for attending today. I'm thinking of taking Father Dave on the road with me, but we'll make those arrangements in the future. But thanking all of you for attending today. Thank you, Sue Bennett, for your amazing back office work on this. Thank you, Mike, for your reflection and all your work that you do to enable the work of Episcopal Relief and Development. Everybody who's on the line, all of these aspects of planned giving can be used for your congregation or other charities. And of course, if you have any questions, need follow-up, please just email me. I'm more than happy to help you out. So that is where we've come. Wishing everybody blessings for the rest of the day, and enjoy the week. Thank you.